All right, here we are. Welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to a very, very special edition of Real Talk with Renee, in which I am calling Healing Trauma with New Decision Therapy, and an interview today with a very special guest, someone that I worked very closely with as a client of hers for a very long time, Christina Heike. Welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Me too. So I'm going to start with just introducing myself just briefly before we get into more of Christina and her life and her work and the questions, because we've had quite a few new people come into the group over the past couple of weeks, and this may perhaps be your first introduction to seeing me. So if you don't know me, I am Renee Croker, and I am the leader of this community, the Highly Sensitive Soul Seeker group here. Just briefly about my background, it is really a combination of actually quite a few things that are very similar to Christina's background.
Yes.
Yeah. As a yoga and meditation teacher, a background in teaching movement in the schools and wellness as well, social work and mental health, which I did for a very long time, and a little bit of the arts and theater thrown in there as well. So that's just briefly about me. And I'm going to spend a little more time introducing Christina in just a moment. If you are here with us, whether you are watching live or you're catching the replay a little bit later on, I encourage you to, first of all, drop a comment now and say hello. Let us know that you're with us. I always love, as I always say, to know who in the community is in the neighborhood and who has stopped by and is sitting on the virtual couch with us, having this conversation with us. So say hello, let us know you're here. Again, whether you're live or watching the replay, if as we go through this conversation today, you have questions or comments that might come up for Christina, for me, about the things that we talk about, just drop them, and periodically I'll be checking the comments and questions and get to them throughout the interview, make sure we have time for them definitely before the interview is over today. And if you're watching the replay and dropping comments, I'll get that notification as well, Christina will as well, that you dropped a comment too. So that being said, let me just do a little check and see if anyone is saying hello just yet. And yes, we have a few people with us. So before I officially introduce Christina Moore, I'm just going to check in to see. Lisa's with us. Lisa is another Staten Islander. Hi, Lisa. Welcome, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Alejandra is with us as well. She's a new member of the group. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. We're really happy you're here with us. A little bit about how Christina and I connected. So we connected, I did a little research, and it was around 2015, I believe. And at that time, I had been in my own therapy with my current therapist, who's an art therapist, for about a year. And I had started really addressing some deep stuff, some trauma. And there was a spa that Christina was working out of at that time that I was going in and out of for a lot of yoga. And I kept seeing her flyer there for months, probably. And every time I would go in, I would pick up the flyer and I would read it. And I would see what she was talking about, her work, about clearing trauma, releasing trauma. And every time I would read it, I'd be like, oh, that sounds really great. And I would look at her background. And I'm like, oh, she's also a yoga teacher. Oh, she also has a degree in special education. Oh, she also taught physical education. Wow, that's so interesting. And this probably went on for 3 or 4 months before one day I went up to the front desk and I was like, hey, do you know anything about this woman and this new decision therapy thing that she does? And the very nice girl at the front desk was like, yeah, I've heard really great things about it, you know? And so from that point on, I called, made an appointment, and we worked really, really close together for a 5-year time span. So that's a little bit about how we connected. And so I'm going to now share Christina's bio as a way of further introducing her work, and then we're going to dive right into the questions. So a little bit more about Christina. Christina Heike whose name I often mispronounce, but I'm now saying correctly, is a keynote speaker and trauma and holistic health expert who directs clients in self-transformation. Christina takes her clients on a journey into their truth, peace, and empowerment so they can connect with their talents and vision to live a meaningful life. She has been synthesizing science with creative and spiritual practices for the last 34 years. Born in Berlin as a highly sensitive child in a non-sensitive family, she gained insights into the volatile nature of the human mind, emotion, and relationships. Questioning the suffering of people and her own, injustice, the spiritual quest, why are we here, and physical pains brought her to her first yoga class at the age of 12. A first step of many in finding tools to balance body, heart, mind, spirit. Key is connection, self, forgiveness, and choosing to be compassionately present. Her master's degree includes special education, psychology, and science of sports. She is a certified naturopathic Germany and Ayurvedic practitioner, as well as a yoga and meditation teacher. Christina is a practitioner of new decision therapy. She was certified in 1999, which propels clients to have greater presence and control over their lives by releasing individual and ancestral trauma and learning mindfulness practices. This is the core practice. Christina immigrated with her now teenage son 5 years ago from Berlin to New York City and is the sole practitioner of new decision therapy, correct? On the East Coast.
East Coast, yeah.
She is a repeat immigrant and visual artist with a passion for our spiritual journey, nature, opera, and felines. And if you saw my post earlier in the group, you saw pictures of me with her beautiful, beautiful kitties that I fell in love with because I'm obsessed with cats. So again, Christina.
Another thing we have in common.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for this introduction, and looking forward to having this conversation, hopefully inspiring others to dive deeper into their journey and have a meaningful and fulfilled life.
Yeah,
that's what we all want, right?
That's right. That's absolutely what yeah, and we I think Regina is with us now too. Regina is a member of the group. So thank you so much, Regina, for being here. And again, if people have things that come up that they want to comment or ask about, just drop them in the comments. So I want to start with what I know the people in this group and who are watching and who will watch many will be interested in, and I think will relate to, and want to know about your experience. And that is what you mentioned in your bio about growing up as a highly sensitive child in a non-sensitive family. So let's start there. How did you know, first of all, how did you know you were different from the rest of your family as far as that kind of sensitivity?
Well, I knew I was different. I probably couldn't have phrased it in that way, right? Because the feeling I got mirrored back to me was that I wasn't okay. You know, I was wrong. I was doing things wrong. I was too whatever, emotional, to this, to that, to angry in phases, to just not quite fitting in, right? Yeah. And just later on with all my training and learning, I realized that that's actually the hallmarks or some of the hallmarks of a highly sensitive person. Right. So I didn't put that together at that time. You know, I just felt emotionally very, very much alone. And even though, I mean, like my mom even stayed home and like, you know, so to raise, I have a brother, an older brother, to raise myself and my brother. But it felt emotionally, I felt completely lonely.
Yeah.
And got into trouble a lot. My brother didn't, you know, he seemed to always, for him, it always worked out all right. For me, I was like constantly in the hot seat. And I also had already as a kid pretty strong opinions, I think, or viewpoints, or was opposed to like many of the viewpoints especially my father put forth, right? And I would say it and would be shut down and belittled, sometimes even like physically I would get hit or something, when I didn't shut up. So so I think there was and the specialty of my parents were like celebrations. When they had birthdays, invited their friends or something, like there would not be one birthday where they didn't use the opportunity to make sure everyone knew that I was the oddball out. So it was very disheartening.
That's an interesting and I'm sure very painful for you as a child, those experiences. I think many sensitive people can relate to that feeling of getting the message there's something wrong with you, or you're too sensitive, and that can manifest in different ways. And for some, it's more of an implosion and a going within. And then it sounds like you had a real awareness actually of your voice and a passion and a desire to speak out with that sensitivity, and it can come out in that way too, and then being shut down from the external.
Yeah, it's true. But the way, like when you saying it back to me, I realized it really I went through phases. I was like, I started out as a very shy kid, and I tried my best to people please. I had I tried to please my parents so badly, it just didn't work, because I had no fucking idea how to do that.
Yeah.
The things I did, they totally didn't get. I remember this was, I don't know if that let me try if I can translate that. I was very young, not even first grade. My brother already had English, and there was something like I picked up a few words, and there was a song about butterfly, and I thought it was flying butter. Because so like I had a phase where I would wake up early in the morning, bring the butter on the table because I want my parents to be like astounded. And they were like, it was totally like,
right.
like small stuff like that, right? Like it doesn't always have to be the horrific stuff, but it was very clear that I was like alone in this boat.
Is there any other way that you think now, reflecting back on how that sensitivity impacted your development as you grew up, becoming a teenager and a little bit older?
Well, connected to the work I'm doing, of course, the imprints that are made in childhood are just enormous. These are the biggest blockages, and I call these blockages trauma because they are located, in the body. And they sit there. I don't know if I can say a little more how they're created, but that's what we're dealing with then through our life. And I saw like me displaying some behaviors of my father, who was like a narcissist, despot kind of person. And while in retrospect, I would say maybe I just displayed leadership skills, I thought, oh my God, no, I'm becoming the despot, and I don't want that. And I tried to shut myself down. And there are all these elements. It's so complex, I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about all the work and the experiences, is to value the complexity. There's no equation in, oh, this happened and that's why I'm this way, or it's really not quite that way. Sometimes we can pinpoint it more, but overall we have something we call a tragic flaw, and that kind of accompanies us through our life and influences us. And and so for sure it influenced my behavior, it influenced how I perceived the world around me. it influenced that I went into yoga and was interested in, well, I was even before that very tuned in spiritually. That was like, I think that was my saving grace really in that feeling all by myself.
Yeah.
And the neighbors, I need to, I had great neighbors. So from the age of 9 or something, I would spend most time there. So,
Yeah.
because they actually wanted to listen and talk with me, and at home, no one did.
Yeah, it's amazing as children how these little angels come into our life sometimes outside of our family when we're feeling like we're so isolated and alone on that.
Totally. You had your cat.
What's that?
Your angel was your cat, right?
I had lots of cats. Yeah. Anyone that knows me knows I'm like cat obsessed, and we always had tons of cats throughout my childhood. There was never a time where we didn't have cats.
Really? Yeah. I mean, we always had pets. We had I know, I think I started off with a turtle or something that was like, I mean, it was still cute, but like it's not that interactive. And a hamster, and then a rabbit. I think the rabbit was my companion then for a while. Yeah. And that those are all things that are actually helping. Oops, sorry, that are helping us to. Why is this doing this? Thank you. That are helping us balance ourselves. Yeah. You know? And resilience research shows it just takes one grown-up or one person that gives you compassion, respect, and listens to you and talks with you to make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely, a huge.
For everyone really on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, for children, that's huge if it's not something that you have in your everyday life. And then even also as adults, even again, sometimes we need it. I won't say more so, but in different ways, because we're often, like the work that we do together, unpacking the things that did occur when we were children and we didn't have that compassionate voice at the time.
And creating and kind of establishing our own compassionate voice towards ourselves. I think that's really in the end key, like to grow up.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. And I talk about self-compassion in this group quite a bit. Something I definitely a skill I had to learn that I really didn't have naturally as an adult. I just, before we go into my next question, I was curious about something that you said earlier. You were talking about we all have a tragic flaw when you were thinking about your experiences growing up as a sensitive. What is your tragic flaw? What would you describe as a tragic flaw?
I'm laughing. Well, there's I don't want to really, that's super personal.
Okay.
I feel it's like, no, not yet. Maybe in our next conversation. But it's like the interesting thing about the tragic flaw is that Dr. Candace Blakely calls it the T-shirt theory, and she has developed the new decision therapy. So in the 90s, like over 30 years ago. It's really amazing. She was so tuned in. So basically it's goes something like, I'm looking for my soul partner, and then it's on the front of your shirt, and on the back it says, but I'm not worth it. That's kind of like the flip side. So you have the tragic flaw would be, feeling of not like strong self-worth, or I mean, like for me, it had to do with loneliness and abandonment. I basically already said that, right? And so it's and still it feels very personal. It's amazing, like this work, it goes so deep, right? It's and so that also brings us to that we often like one thing and get another until we resolve that more.
That T-shirt, that's a perfect example. I want this, but I'm not worthy of it.
You go into a room, right? Like, and then they see, when you leave, they see the back, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, and that's where you see you really need to do the work when you become aware of the t-shirt, what's on the back of the t-shirt.
Well, or with words today, like the blind spot, right? Like it's right, it's on written on your back. You don't necessarily see it, right? Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit into your childhood. There's something else that's interesting, and we have another person with us if you want to pop in and say hello. That you related to yoga, which I always think it's so interesting when people are really young and they discover yoga, because growing up, in my time period, that wasn't all that common. And I taught it in schools, and I think you did a little bit too. So you talk about having some physical pain that brought you to your first yoga class at the age of 12. Can you share with us a little bit about what was causing that pain, what was going on with you, and how that led you to the discovery of yoga?
Okay, there are a few things that I think you tie together that are kind of like not exactly that.
Okay.
But let me see. So gosh, yeah, how do I put it? So I discovered yoga when I went to church school. I was raised Protestant, which basically just meant we had like lullaby prayers, like a 2-minute ones, and Christmas in church in Christmas for Christmas. I was again the oddball out with like praying and believing in God and being clear on rebirth, and like that kind of like in that time also all became clearer to me. And we had an amazing female priest, and she brought in yoga into the church. Wow. She brought in making natural cosmetics, natural products. We went to peace demonstrations and anti-nuclear power stuff, and like so she was amazing. Wow. So that's where I encountered yoga, and it was right away, it was clear that I that was my path, and I actually brought my mom with me. Wow. I introduced my mom to yoga at that time, and she actually later on, I mean, I have also like a my relationship with my mom is also challenging, not warm. She is very traumatized, Second World War woman, very kind of like non-emotional, not present. And so the sweeter it was when at some point later in my life, when I taught yoga and had a yoga studio in Berlin, that she was asking, oh, can old people like me come too?
Did she like yoga?
Huh?
Did your mom enjoy yoga? She liked it?
She came for several years, and very sweetly brought always a tiny gift, like a flower or something. That was, I think, really a good time for our mother-daughter relationship. But I want to like remind anyone here also on the call or who's listening to this later, I realized when I said, my first reaction was, yes, sure, come. And then I'm like going home, I'm like, oh shit. My mom, she's like, I mean, she's always putting me down, right? I don't want to be in a yoga class and hear, oh yeah, my daughter's with the rebirth and all the compassion. Oh yeah, I'm like, oh my God. So I was really courageous, and I approached her and I'm like, you know what, Mom? I think because of our differences, I think it would be really good to have like let's try it out for 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking you to really keep your opinion to yourself. I don't want to hear it in class.
Yeah. Good for you.
And that reminds me of one thing, like highly sensitive people often struggle with. It's boundaries. It's so hard because we're so like, we see everything, this freaking full moon and eclipse, it's like, okay. Right. So that's why this comes to mind. It's so important to set boundaries, and if we can preemptively, because for the longest of times, because my boundaries in childhood had been overstepped over and over and over, I wasn't even aware when my boundaries were overstepped. It's sometimes like a day later, I'm like, wait a second, that wasn't okay. And so I brought the timeline more and more together. It might be familiar for many here in your group. And let's bring it back to your question. It's like in that time period, I also developed migraines, very severe migraines that I had throughout my teenage years. And yeah, that was like I needed something to like relax and reconnect with my body and my emotions, because of course I also had decompartmentalized and disconnected from the trauma that I experienced.
Yeah. So, and then what you were talking about with your mom, with inviting her to the classes, you were teaching those classes later, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you went on
from the 12th year to the, I don't know, I think mid-30s, that when she came to my classes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that's where I was going to go next, was transitioning into your adult life, and you obviously became certified as a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, got your other degrees, which I talked about earlier, in special education, and I assume we're working perhaps in a school prior to doing the new decision therapy.
Well, I was like Germany is in that sense, it's so easy to work part-time. So you can work part-time, you have all your benefits. It's not like this what I always am flabbergasted here. It's like, how can you not have health insurance just because you work part-time? How does anyone do that? So I after my master's exams, I actually had a 2-year break where I lived a year in Thailand, and I really didn't want to go into teaching anymore, because I thought like we're really on the forefront of supporting the system and making people adapt to who they not really are, not encouraging them to be true to themselves and learn how to deal with their emotions and so on. So it took me 2 years to be like, okay, let's do it. And I did mostly part-time. The first 2 years I did full-time. That's the way it's set up there. And then I did part-time, and I could do all my other work as well, parallel to it.
Let's bring in the new decision therapy now. So let's talk about first, from your perspective, of how you discovered new decision therapy personally, and then taking us on that journey and how that led to you becoming a certified practitioner.
Yeah, great question. So I had a summer where I was on 2 Buddhist retreats, one Thich Nhat Hanh retreat in southern France, Plum Village. Some of you might know Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese Zen monk, beautiful books and quotes. And the other one was with a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, also in southern France. And I met an American gentleman and fell in love, and went to Kentucky, of all places.
Oh, Kentucky.
Beautiful, but also interesting, or from New York perspective. But, beautiful. And one evening he's like, my boyfriend was, oh, there's a workshop, you want to go? It's about trauma. I'm like, yeah, sure. We went. Sure enough, Candice Blakely gave the workshop, and she had a presentation, because it's a very special and specific work with muscle testing and the forgiveness process in the mirror and all that. So she gave a demonstration, and I'm like, yeah, cool, very cool. And she's like, so what do you think? Well, I'm like, yeah, but everyone says they're releasing trauma. I believe it when I feel it. And that's kind of that was always my thing, that I wanted to experience things. And then when I felt it really worked for me, I went out and learned it to pass it on and to have others experience it. And so I booked a session, and yeah, that's the result is 20 years later. I'm still doing it. It was really like, I think my whole life up to then, I've looked for something that could cut through behavioral patterns that I felt I was not fully in charge of, getting triggered, setting up situations that were working out in a way that I actually didn't want to work out that way. But so this feeling of standing in my own way and repeating things was already there. I think I was 20 when I'm like, oh God, I need to go to therapy. I can't do this my whole life, repeating these things. And the session showed me that this was a modality that actually was able to cut through the roots and of the problem.
So you had just the one session for
that's what already was enough to kind of know that that's what I wanted to do. And then there was a whole story of like, we met in different places on the planet and trained, and in the end it brought me to New York in the late 90s. Yeah. And I became her got all the certifications. I became her personal assistant. We became close friends. She unfortunately died already in 2013. So.
Right.
I just want to say, and I really I'm working on carrying on her legacy. It's such as you have experienced, I guess. And then maybe I would love to ask you that question too. What you thought was different from the new decision therapy approach to the therapy, right? Because you also did both and found value in both. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we'll get into that a little bit. I'll just say, and it kind of leads into my next question, actually. The difference to me being there's a very energetic quality to it. So with the talk therapy, which my therapy wasn't completely talk therapy, there was a lot of art involved with it, which is a little bit different too, but with the new decision therapy, there is a sense of energy, like literally changing. I feel like something, moving from the system and changing, like a big energetic release, rather than maybe just changing the perspective or a way of thinking, which it can do that also. But there's just the only way I can think of to describe it is like more of an energetic connection. And that being said, let's go into a little bit about why the word decision is in it, and trauma and decision making, because coming into my own experience with it and my understanding, and you can maybe fill in the gaps here, is that with the new decision therapy, it helps you to pinpoint a period in time. And we can talk a little bit about the muscle testing and stuff in a little bit too, which is to me very fascinating. But it helps you to pinpoint a period in time when a blockage has occurred, which could be due to a trauma. Often for me, it was traumas, and that block occurs and starts to impact how we're making decisions. So can you? And then what the new decision therapy does is it helps you to clear that blockage so that you can begin making more decisions that are more new decisions that are more aligned. So how would you describe the impact, before getting into the clearing process, how would you describe the impact that trauma has on us at that time, as far as how we start to make decisions related to those traumas and our worldview that might happen then?
Yeah, good question. Let me just say about the things you just mentioned. I think you pinpointed it. That it's I also often call it energy psychology, because it really shifts the energy deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do that also in the realm of being held by Mother Earth and Divine Spirit. Yeah, I think that's important to me, because we come there, get there later, I guess. So in terms of the decisions, it's really the name New Decision Therapy was, Dr. Candice Blakely picked it because when a blockage is created, it is our decision. That might sound a little uncomfortable at first, but it goes back to what I said earlier, that also not like there's no equation, you know, like you sometimes have people go through this very similar situation, often siblings or even like twin siblings go through the similar situation, and still they don't come up with the same let's say evaluation, like, you know, like a kid isn't like sitting there and it's like, oh yeah, pro and con, and let's see, you know, like, no, but in the end we have internally we evaluate and react, and we make a decision. You know, we make a decision if that's something that is create, like, we allow it to create a blockage in us. So to make it a bit more palpable, like for example, a child, it doesn't have to be the biggest abuse, and which all of us understand. It can be the last straw event, let's say, being ignored over and over and over, and at some point the child is like, oh my God, if life is like this, I don't want it. You know, blockage.
Yeah.
And with the New Decision Therapy, we use a muscle testing to actually connect with the body's wisdom, because your body remembers.
Right, that's a good one.
early 90s, she already had that down pat, you know, far like before her time.
Yeah.
Far ahead of her time. That's, yeah, okay. Well, second language, you gotta forgive me. So, and with the muscle testing, we go back to that blockage, and we set a new, we allow ourselves a new decision. You know, we find out with the muscle testing who is involved, like which people in our history were involved in creating that blockage. When did it happen? What often we found, like you will remember, the exact moment in time, right, where the energy kind of broke with setting this blockage, and then we go in the mirror, and with the forgiveness process, and I'd love to say a few more words about that as well. With the forgiveness process, we release the hold that blockage has over us. Yeah, and basically set a new decision. You know, I am ready to be happy. I am ready to be healthy. I am ready, and whatever that blockage was, to fully take care of myself and embrace life as it is. Or, you know, it is all, of course, very individual, but to just give people a taste.
And what did you want to say more about the forgiveness process? You said you'd like to say a little more about that. I think that's
I would love to see if anyone has something in the comments, how the word forgiveness lands with people.
Yeah, so let's put that out to the group, because people are
Does it make your hair stand up, or are you like, oh, forgiveness, or like what is it?
So if you're watching right now and you just hear the word forgiveness, just put in the comments anything that comes up to you, for you, as a natural reaction to that word. I know I've been through a lot with that word in our work together myself. It was something I really struggled with, to be honest. And I have a couple different perspectives on forgiveness, and I know I've done a lot of forgiveness with myself and with others. A lot of it was in that work together. But I think it is, in my opinion, you can't just like necessarily jump to forgiveness without going through a lot of some other things too along the journey. That's been my personal experience. What did you want to have to say?
I would underscore that. And also, like, the idea of that forgiveness means to say, oh, I forgive you, it's okay. It's not okay. It was never okay. And nevertheless, we need to forgive so that we can unhook and unblock ourselves. It's really the highest form of self-care, right? And because the blockage sits in us, not in the person who was part of creating it, right? The anger lives in us, the regret lives in us, and hurts us. So, and in order to release that, Candace Blakely discovered that forgiveness is a key to do that, to release energetically, again, with the energy that hold over us. And yes, that unhooks the other person too, but often we also are very happy to be like really unhooked from that person, right? So it's really for us.
Yeah, it's not, it's for the one doing the healing. And the other person doesn't always need to be involved in the process. And
good point. Not at all with the new decision therapy, right? You do it in the mirror. You talk in the mirror to the people involved. They don't need to know anything about that. And I think, I don't know, maybe you even have a story of from your own experience. Like often it shifts the relationships because energetically something has shifted.
Yeah, and we have
really fascinating
commenting about forgiveness. So I'm just going to share with you. Gina says that forgiveness is hard and I struggle with it, whether it's for myself or with others. And one thing I will say is that, she says that it's hard, and I would say it's work, because I don't think that it's easy. And then there's another comment from Lisa, and she, I believe she's talking about forgiveness. She says, only if the person has learned from it, then can they be forgiven, if forgiving is a feel-good word. And then she said, if I do not learn, then I do not know what I am forgiving.
Okay. Not sure if I fully capture it.
Yeah, I don't know. She might be, and Lisa, you can drop another comment if you want, but
drop another comment. Maybe I can speak to the first one. Like I agree, it's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. And in the process of new decision therapy, you will experience it as deeply relieving, and that will make it worth all the, like the push and pull we have around that word. She said something else in the comment. What it's hard. Oh, self-forgiveness.
Self-forgiveness. Yeah.
Forgiveness is really at the core of it all, right? It's like, because we work with the muscle testing, we work from the outside in, it's like, from other people. Sometimes, like I even have like forgiveness process with God or divine spirit. And in the end, in the very heart of hearts, we need to forgive ourselves, because often what others have done to us, we do to ourselves, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, for me, I found what it really came down to was a lot at the core. It was really about self-forgiveness. That was what it was really about. We could have a whole conversation, I feel like, for a long time, just on the concept of forgiveness. Just one, because I feel like it's something that,
we can do another time.
Yeah, it's just, I just want to say one more thing about it. I feel like it's something that can be really misunderstood. It's thrown around a lot in religious dogma, in a way that I, forgive thy neighbor and be for, and it's so much more complex. At the time, right before we had started doing our work together, I had been reading two different books at the same time. Maybe people who have read them, and you're probably familiar with them, but one is Women Who Run with Wolves. who I highly recommend for any women watching Women Who Run with Wolves. And then the other one is The Courage to Heal for sexual abuse trauma survivors. And it was just really interesting because they had two different perspectives on forgiveness that I thought were equally valid. And the Courage to Heal for the sexual abuse survivors, when it talked about forgiveness, it said it's completely your choice to forgive, and you don't have to if you don't want to. And at that time, when I read that, it was very empowering to me to know that forgiveness was a choice and that I can make it if I wanted to, but I didn't have to. And that if I wanted to be angry for a goddamn long while, excuse my French, that I could. And, I needed that at that time because I had repressed so much anger. Then I was reading the other book, Women Who Run with Wolves, and she was talking about forgiveness from trauma and similar things. And she was saying that forgiveness is very important to the healing process, but it's okay if you don't feel like you're there yet. All you really need is just the desire to perhaps be able to forgive at some point in time. So I just wanted to share that because, if you've been through trauma, if you've been through abuse, it's your choice, it's a choice.
It's your decision. We're back to
it's a decision, and you can choose.
And I even have, especially with deep sexual abuse with women I work with, I even in the phrasing will vary and will go to, I want to forgive you, or I might want to forgive you, and see what's a step, a person is really ready to do. Yeah. And I have a book in the pipeline about forgiveness, and one of my working titles, which is probably going to be changed, but was like "Fuck Forgiveness." Right.
Right.
Because it's so like, oh yeah, you gotta forgive, and it's like, yeah, no, you gotta do nothing.
Right.
Right. It's a whole different perspective. We're coming at it.
Yes.
A perspective of self-liberation and also, in the forgiveness, you never forgive someone for abusing or raping you or anything like that. That's not what you forgive. You can forgive something like the breach of trust or the making you feel unsafe in your own body. And it's not like, oh yeah, you does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's work. I'll just keep coming back to that. It's work. And I know in our work together, I had to, and with my mom and her relationship, that was a big crux of our work. And I know, there were sessions where it was not, I forgive you, it was, I want to, or yeah, some of those words that you used earlier, someday I'll get, and eventually a lot of forgiveness did come, but that was quite a long process. Lisa dropped another comment because we were asking her to just check in again. And she said, I have to learn something, what caused the issue and why I or they did it, and how I can not be in that situation again.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you for the clarification, because you basically just outlined the forgiveness process.
Yeah.
It's we're with the muscle testing, we're bringing the why back into consciousness, right? From the body who remembers everything into our consciousness that often dissociates because it's too painful or because it was pre-verbal, so bring it back into consciousness with the support, and then go through the forgiveness and the understanding. And often, in generational trauma, for example, we really have certain behaviors handed down through generations, still doesn't make it okay, but we gain a different understanding. And often it's really about what we wanted from people that we did not receive as well, and to realize they didn't have it to give. It wasn't because of you, they just didn't have it.
And
people received it themselves. And so that for me, I'm even like saying it that way. I breathe deeply because that makes that connection of, oh, okay, you know,
Yeah.
and then we can release the emotions that are balled up in that blockage, and also that younger version of ourselves that wants to, you know, be free and dance and come back down to the inner family table and be there, and not like feel frozen in like how I imagine the blocks as like us frozen in time, you know, or parts of us frozen in time. So
Yeah. And just going back a little bit to what you said about, you know, forgiveness, for me too, that really resonates with me about coming to an understanding, which I did over time, that the person you're forgiving didn't have it to give to you what you were seeking. You know, and that was very much, you know, with my relationship with my mother, which was very challenging. She had passed away several years before we started working together. She's been passed away for a long time now. And, you know, eventually coming to this understanding that she was just a very, she was a person who had never done the work herself, and was just carrying around a ton of pain, and was just, you know, me as a child, children are sponges and as sensitive. I was, you know, absorbing a great deal of that. And so a lot of the forgiveness had to do with me finally coming to a place of seeing it from that perspective, where she just didn't have it. She didn't have it. She even said that at one point, much later in life, like, you know, I know I wasn't a very good mother to you. You know, when I was
acknowledgement.
Yeah. So,
and that you mentioned this, if I just want to like add this, you know, your mother had died, so there's no limit on the new decision therapy. I work often with people who have passed on, and it's powerful. And often I even in certain realms of generational trauma, it like I have different generations float into the like come into the room with us and energetically supporting the clearing, and I even feel them shift.
Yeah, that happened in our sessions before. He said, I feel them coming in. And just something on that, on people passing away and doing the work. And there's a comment from Regina, so I'm just going to share that quickly. She says, it's work about forgiveness, and difficult when there's suppressed negative feelings and emotions, and it depends on the person and situation. So of course, yeah.
And do you want to like, I want to say something about denial. That's a special element, but like, do you want to finish your thought, because you're just.
Yeah, just briefly about, so I, you know, just something I was thinking about earlier. Oftentimes, in my opinion, from my experience and things that I've observed and seen and learned of, and people I've worked with, when a parent passes away, there's something that, when there's a lot of unresolved issues, it suddenly becomes safe then to start to look at those issues. That's what occurred for me. So sometimes when a parent passes away, it opens up an opportunity to begin to heal and forgive in a way that hasn't happened before while they were still alive. And they don't need to be alive, and you don't need to go through that process with them, with you necessarily communicating in the physical world with them. I don't think I ever necessarily would have been able to do that with my mom. But after her passing, suddenly all the stuff came up. I think it came up because it was like, okay, it's safe now to actually look at this stuff. So that's just something I was reflecting on.
Yeah, definitely one possibility. I think why like some people think they have lost their opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. When someone passes on, they still need to clear things up with, and that's why I wanted to mention it there. The opportunity is not lost.
Yeah. And then you wanted to mention something about denial.
I don't know if it leads us to, well, yeah, no.
No?
I don't know. It's going very, very specifically into it. I don't know. Like, do you want to do people want to hear this right now? Denial, anyone? It was related to the comment you read.
Yeah, what Regina said. I think, you know.
Regina was saying, it's really the beauty of this work that is that there is a clearing of denial involved that really allows us to go in fully.
Yeah.
And it's not like in the session you're not like contemplating, am I doing it or not? You know, when you like your biggest step is to show up for the session, and then you know it's you know like and I'm so, again, the book Your Body Remembers, I'm totally relying on your body's wisdom. I think, you know, and my job is to read the energy and to guide you through. It's like I'm not manipulating the situation, and that's why in all the years I've worked, it's so safe. You know, people are really like they're going on in their pace, and they're like, you know, they're weaving their journey.
Yeah, I think that's really important because you know, if you've been through trauma, there's certain things you're ready to deal with at certain times, and then other times you might know they're there, but be like, no, I'm not yet, not yet. And that really leads actually into the next question, which is something that's so interesting about the work, and you talked about it a little bit, is the muscle testing and the work in the mirror. So let's just explore those a little bit. So I found the muscle testing so fascinating, and from what I remember, you know, you would hold out either the right or the left arm and do like to see if the arm would go down, and to pinpoint an age, starting with my current age and then going down, and then it's whatever. So you can describe it better than I can. Do you want to talk about a little bit about the purpose and intent behind the muscle testing, and then maybe we'll talk about the mirror a little bit?
I think it's really we've kind of covered it somewhat, because the muscle testing is a tool to tap into your body's wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, so that you can read your energy. And I mean, even like, I think 25 something years ago, I had a dentist. She used muscle testing to find out which fillings would be good for me.
Oh, wow.
You can use it for medication. You can use it for everything, basically, and get a read from what, you know, your body is saying. It's a little bit more complicated than this, but I'm not sure where we are on time. So, you know, if you have a drug addiction and you don't clear denial, then your body will be like, oh yeah, I like that drug, right?
Yeah.
Because so there are steps you need to do in order to get a good reading, and you need to be, you know, like experienced and practiced in doing that. But it's an amazing tool. And I remember when I encountered it first, I was like, weird stuff, you know, and as I said, it's a long time ago. And by now it's like, you know, it kind of all came together and synthesized in this technique of Dr. Candace Blakely.
Yeah, and it is really fascinating because I remember sometimes it would be, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that happened in my first session, and that was when I was 2 years old, like 2 or 3 years old, something I didn't even remember. But then the next week it could be something, you know, when I was 17, or something when I was 32. So it was just so fascinating how the body would say, okay, this is what I want to release today. Anything from age, you know, infant up to, you know, however old I was at the time. And the body saying, you know, I'm ready for this. And that always did make me feel safer, like, okay, my body's ready, so it's okay. And then the other really fascinating part is the work with the mirror. It's a literal mirror, and you're standing in front of the mirror and looking into either your right eye or your left eye, from what I recall, whether you're working with masculine energy or feminine energy, or those people in your life. Why is the mirror important? What does that do?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of research now about mirrors, and I, you know, like mirror neurons, and really in the end, it's all like let's say it metaphysically, really, it's like, or spiritually, in the end, all of our life is a mirror of ourselves, what's going on inside of us, right? In some way or another. Again, no equation here, please. But like it has to do with us. And so if we really want to clear, we need to face ourselves
Yeah, a lot of it is about facing, I think. Yeah. Um,
And that's what we do in the mirror.
yeah, it's really interesting to be able to be looking at that blockage and just staying focused with your eyes open and not, it really is a way of like not turning away. You know, I remember having some experiences of crying and closing my eyes, and you gently guiding me to actually keep the eyes open and to keep looking. And it is really a way of doing that work where we're not turning away. So it is deep work in that sense. Um, so I'm going to share a little, I put a little teaser in the invitation that I was going to share something about our first session and how something actually changed about my physical appearance. And so I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. So as I mentioned in the beginning, you know, I've been coming in and out of that spa, picking up that flyer, and finally made that first session. And we went through the process and the muscle testing. And as it came up, it was, like I said, something that I don't remember when I was very young, 2 or 3 years old. And it was a move from the Middle East to the States and how that had created some kind of blockage for me. So it's really interesting too, how sometimes it's things we don't even remember. Well, so we went through the session. At the end, we were sitting down and talking. And I had not said anything to you about this, but you said you may notice that your pupils are even in size now. So a little bit of a background, for years, one of my pupils, and now I'm not even sure which one, I think it was the left, one was always a lot smaller, a lot bigger than the other. One was smaller, one was bigger. Particularly, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but particularly when I would drink alcohol, I would exasperate for some reason. My husband, who is a nurse, would be the one person who would notice this all the time. And he would always say, I hope you don't have a neurological issue going on because one of your pupils is bigger than the other. And so that happened. And you mentioned that. And my pupils have been healed since that first session. It's so odd. And I said, oh, that's weird. You noticed that. And why did that happen? And you said, well, if it's not a neurological issue, it's usually a sign of some kind of blockage. So what can you say about that? I found that very fascinating.
I think you said everything. Well, obviously our, like I think we know by now really that trauma has, or blockages, like, you know, have an impact on our health and have an impact on our body. And this new decision therapy is also releasing the health impact a blockage had on your body. So at that point in time, we cleared the impact it had on your different pupil size. And that's something I'm observing. People get healthier during our work together. And, you know, I also include other modalities like yoga, meditation, Ayurveda with herbs and nutrition and so on, depending on what someone needs, and create a flow to bring some fun into it, really, also like mindfulness and the joy in expressing it in your body with dancing or arts and drawing and so on, because I wanted it to not be so stern, but kind of like, because the goal of all of this is, that's how we started, living a peaceful and happy life.
Yeah.
Like meaningful, fulfilled, fully present as much as possible. Right, that's what we want. And trauma keeps us kind of behind the veil, you know. That's how I felt for the longest time of my life. Actually, well, it's turning, I'm getting older, so for a long time. Yeah. And yeah, so it's really amazing that it's taking care of the emotional aspect of any illness. So that I can say. And if you imagine a pie chart, everyone has a different size slices of what's emotional. You know, for someone it might be just like a thin slice. For another person it's like, you know, a 50% slice. And so according to what it is for you individually, that will be the impact your health is improved.
Yeah.
You know, if the health issue is connected to your emotions.
Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting. As we get ready to close shortly, and you kind of just answered my next question, if anyone else has any other that's with us now or watching the replay, any other questions that you specifically want to ask Christina, whether it's related to trauma or anything that we've talked about during this conversation, just drop them in the comments and they will be seen, and I'll make sure and check again before we close out the interview in a little bit. So I mentioned, so you mentioned some of the other things that you do, and after we worked together so intensely for so long, our relationship began to develop more and more. I started doing the reflexology also, which was a nice integration after the new decision therapy. And you did some of that fun stuff that you were just talking about. And that was what I was going to ask you, is what are some of the other ways that you work with people besides the new decision therapy? You talked about dance, sometimes some art. I know sometimes we would pull some angel cards and things like that. Is there anything else you want to share as far as that kind of thing?
I think the most important is that it's individually tuned into the person. You know, if someone has is not inclined to draw cards, I'm not gonna make anyone draw cards. Or if someone doesn't want to like do certain things, you know, like we're I think that's a beauty. We're really weaving it very individually, and you'll see like we you know, this is the support in really blossoming and being who we truly are at our core, and then sharing our gifts and supporting others who are on the journey as well, right?
It's a beautiful thing when we're able to heal our own wounds, shine our own light, and then be able to share that light with others, because we all do have so much to give when we have done our own work.
Totally. And remember, that's also comes in the clearing. Remember, we're all human. I encounter things that are throwing me off balance. So that's why we need also tools how to rebalance. And the beauty is that it happens much, much, much less, like also like when you know you're getting triggered, those are blockages, right? Where you like that want to be released. And so it really becomes much more peaceful. And you now I lost my train of thought. So blah 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 blah. Oh, we're all human. So don't like that. That's really like I like to keep things real, you know. And so is my life perfect at all times? That would be like we're here to learn and grow continuously, you know. And the beauty Candice Blakely also developed another approach that then from the clearing your past goes into, so what's your next step? What makes your heart sing? What do you want to, you know, what's your God walk? And that's what we come here together to and support each other in.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so thank you for the platform you also gave me, the work, and everyone who's listening to you know, do a bit more of that and supporting each other on the journey, because, you know, we're spirit in a human form.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, well, thank you so much for being my special guest today. This was really a beautiful experience. I loved every minute of it. I don't see any last minute comments or questions here, so just checking that. But if anyone has them, we have like just another minute or so. Do you have anything that we haven't talked about today? Anything else you want to share? Any closing comments, words of wisdom?
If you want to connect through my website, you can book like a 20-minute complimentary phone call, and we can, like, you know, see if there's anything I can support you with, or I can refer you to someone who can support you. And I think it was just beautiful for me also, this experience, because you and I haven't talked about it in this way. Obviously, it's very like different than when you and I just talk, right? So it's yeah, thank you for that. And
Awesome.
thank you for everyone who is on live with us and who is listening to it later. I'm looking forward to your comments and gonna do my best to answer them.
Yeah, me too. And I just lost my train of thought. I forgot what my closing words were going to be. But I want to thank everyone that has been here with us, that is watching later. Thank you so much. I hope that you have benefited from this experience, from listening and engaging with us. And if you want to, again, connect with Christina and learn more about what she does, I did put her website here. And so you can check that out. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I just remember to point out what an amazing journey you went through, from being a teacher and really kind of like dreading to go in to school and working. And I remember that one scene in the spa, like, do you know, like when they had signs, like little, like they were supposed to be inspirational, I guess. And one and I'm like, oh, she's gonna change her job for sure. But I'm not gonna say that to her.
Yeah.
Because it's your journey. It's not, like, just that I'm highly intuitive. I'm not gonna, like, like take that away. And you have gone through such an amazing journey, courageously and powerful, and became that wonderful yoga teacher and doing podcasts and interview. I think it's just wonderful. I just wanted to
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. And, there were many things about the work that I did in the school that I loved, but there was just signs at a certain point where it was time to, time to make a change. So, yeah. So again, thank you for being my special guest. Thank you everyone in the community here for being with us. I'm going to sign off now, and I look forward to connecting with everyone soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.